It's really hard for Blizzard to, I think, actually get that expectation across, especially because they're looking at the MAUs, the DAUs, they're looking at like playtime for metrics, and they just see these things going up, but they don't have a player experience metric. They need like a player experience index where they monitor your emotions as you're playing, and you're like, when people log out, like
Yeah.
a little like rate your World of Warcraft experience out of 5 stars every time you log out.
I think that's really interesting because we can bring this over to the land of big tech.
Mm-hmm.
If you optimize YouTube for DAUs and MAUs, which by the way they do, what's going to happen is you're going to create all of these incentives to, it's like, you got to be very careful in what you measure because you're going to optimize for what you measure. You're going to get more of what you measure, but you're not necessarily going to be aware of the results, the other results, the externalities of that. So it's like whenever YouTube does that, then the algorithm juices everything. The single most important thing is getting your title and your thumbnail to be right. It's the only bloody way to get, and it sucks. It sucks for...
Yeah.
Don't worry, I know it. I'm a YouTube user as well, by the way. Sucks for me as a YouTube user. Sucks for me as a YouTube creator. If you talk to other people on YouTube, literally like everyone dislikes this stuff from an actual, user perspective. Yeah, YouTube's numbers are going to the moon, right? And it's like, man, it's just that thing. You optimize to the DAUs and the MAUs and whatever that stuff is. And what are the hidden costs of that? And it turns out in YouTube, the hidden cost of that is making everybody angry and reactionary and just creating all this nastiness, And I'm talking about this in the context of big tech. I mean, if you look at other tech platforms, like your Facebooks and your Twitters, they're totally optimized for engagement and their DAUs and their MAUs. And it is no wonder that a great deal of toxicity and many, many, many humongous societal problems arise from cesspools like that. And I say cesspool, it's not cesspool, it's the town square. It's turned the town square into a cesspool. So it's when you then apply that to to anything else. It's like if Destiny 2 has to... I think it's sometimes useful to give examples that are further away from the thing that we're emotionally attached to, because then we can... we're disengaged, so we can think about it a bit more clearly. If like Destiny 2 entirely optimizes it for its monthly active users and its DAUs and whatever, is that going to lead Bungie to make decisions that make people feel like they're just kind of being, forced into playing the game, or mandatory content, something here a lot of World of Warcraft people, I think more on the top end, complain about. So it is that thing. But the problem is, and this is the bitter bloody pill to swallow, is that it works. It works until it breaks.
Yeah.
And I guess it's going to take a while for YouTube, Twitter, and etc. to Facebook to break society. They're doing a bloody good job of it.
Yeah, I think that's fundamentally like what's actually going to happen, because big tech is too big to fail in so many ways, and we will continue to click. It's like, it's because all of this stuff is optimized around our worst instincts as people. Parts like, I mean, obviously, like you go back to before, like a couple decades ago. People were generally like, yeah, be patient, be nice, be generous, all these like positive virtues. And, you could espouse those, and you could, I guess, work towards them as a community fairly well. But then you go on Twitter, and the entire system that's completely like shoving you full of dopamine is based on engagement. And I mean, patience is nothing to do with like instant engagement.
Yeah,
that comes from basically like the most primal, basest parts of us. That's like your anger. You're angry, so you're like, no, dickhead. That's not good for...
Brings out the worst in people and in good people. There's so many people, maybe there's an actor or somebody they look up to, and then they go onto their Twitter and they're like, oh, I thought whatever, but it turns out they're actually a raving or maybe they're not a raving lunatic, but maybe they're just reactionary and a bit of a prick. Like with famous people and stuff like that. It's like the second social media gets in people, it just gets in, it gets into their brain, it fiddles around with it. And that's not ideal, right? There's been times I've even caught in my own head, making things being like, I could react to this right now and get some likes on Twitter, and I've done it, and then it's, you know, afterwards there've been the few sane people in the room who've done a reply being like, come on, really, dude? And then I'm like, oh, you're right. And we bring this up for the social media and all that just to say that, you know, if WoW was maximally optimizing for the DAUs and the MAUs, you know, that could maybe lead to a situation where to do Torghast, you've got to do some of the MAU, and to do your raid, you know, on, one day, well, the day before, you've got to go do these things. And, you know, that could all optimize for your DAUs or whatever, MAUs.
Yeah.
But I think it's more the, like, what's the damage we inflict in the process? But then the problem is, it works until it breaks. And that basically means that, you know, if you're a business and you've got a legal responsibility to maximize your shareholder or whatever, you've got your fiduciary responsibilities and all of that, then you're, you know, if you want to just focus entirely on player experience, you will absolutely make a better game and a better player experience, but maybe one that less people end up sticking with over time, you know?
Yeah, there's a couple of there's a couple of factors that like interfere with this all in such a grim way, because first of all you've got your fiduciary duty, which obviously is in the short to medium term provide like as much return as you can for your shareholders. If you're not doing that, you can literally you can be sued for that. That is a serious offense to, you know, just play with money instead of giving it to the shareholders. So you've got that where it you've got the short to medium term focus. Then combine that with optimizing for because you want the sure result. So you optimize for what you know, and you can measure monthly active users, you can measure daily active users, you can measure how much money that will bring you to do this in a short time. So obviously the correct choice for by all of these metrics and all of these goals as a business is to do the short term, medium term thing. It's like if World of Warcraft started giving you daily login bonuses up front, it's doing that on a weekly basis. It's giving you weekly login bonuses. It's giving you, you know, your daily stuff to actually do. It's just not as obvious as a big flashing mobile game, which is a little bit less insidious and more just, you're on the hook. So there's all of these different incentives and factors lining up to short-term stuff. But then, you know, with how short-term investment and how short-term, you can only really measure these things in the short term reliably, because you can't measure player experience very well. It's too qualitative, it's too random, it involves too many personal things of people. You can get a general gist of it, but you don't get that on your graphs, which very nicely line up with your money graphs over the past 6 months.
Yeah, and if you're trying to advocate for change in your company, you're going to have some numbers to back up the shit you're saying, or you'll never get it done.
Yeah, you can't say, cut MAUs in half and our money will double. They're like, nah.
Yeah, they're going to be like, going to hit you with a big disagree there, mate. And, you know, it's just tricky. So, you know, that is to say that we're all operating in a very, very complex digital economy, and, you know, those things actually do affect everything. And the numbers that, you know, you choose to measure, to pay attention to, well, those do matter. There is it's like what gets measured gets, you know, there's some little saying there that's a really good one, but I've completely forgotten
I've heard it before, but I don't remember.